Hi, I'm Randall. I grew up along the coast of Maine, and that's where my love of the ocean started. I sailed over 10,000 miles in my 20s, and after hanging up my Fowleys, I rediscovered my love of the bicycle. Both cycling and sailing connect me to nature and give me a sense of freedom and adventure. Now, I'm going to try to combine the two. I bought this old sailboat with the goal of sailing it to the Caribbean and then to Europe to do some epic sailing and exploring by bike. But first, I've got to refit and modernize this big old classic. Oh, and I'm on an insanely tight budget, so I'm going to do as much of the work as I can myself while having a little fun along the way. And I hope you come along for the ride. We are getting down to business, finally. I've had the boat hauled, power washed, unrigged, had the masts unstepped, and had it transported inland a few miles. The spar was also transported because the boatyard was already maxed out on the storage racks, which was a bit of a bummer because it cost me a few pretty pennies to move them, and it wasn't really in the plan. But I've got a great opportunity thanks to my friends at Total Boat, who are giving me access to their awesome workshop and lab. I've got some big ambitions ahead, and I know that I'm going to need some really decent tools to get the jobs done right. And a big thanks to our newest Patreon supporters. Thanks for helping to keep this show chugging along. Without your support, this really wouldn't be possible, so thanks very much. The biggest thing on my mind the whole time in the water was the stuffing box. It leaked and it freaked me out. And I did lose a little bit of sleep on a few stormy nights wondering if I was being foolish by keeping it in the water. And I've seen a few brave souls replace their stuffing box while their boats were in the water. And after backing off the dripless system and watching the water gush in, I realized I was just not going to be that adventurous.
That's very sensible.
I also needed to get some coaching as to what the proper solution might be. If you caught my earlier episode with Walter Schultz from Shannon Boat Company, he was generous enough to swing by and give me some advice and some tips on what I should do next.
Well, it's the last gasp right before you do an April 15th, 1912.
They called her Titanic.
You get to be Leonardo DiCaprio floating on a door.
Keep moving, Ross. Keep moving.
This was such a terrible idea. This was a solution to a problem nobody was having. I mentioned that old Elko that I have. Yep. That boat's 92 years old, and the packing gland, bronze part of it, is all in place 92 years later. That's got to go. How many bilge pumps you got in this boat?
I've got 3.
You need 12 if this thing lets go. It'll sink the boat.
And with that not so subtle advice, I was off to shop for a bronze stuffing box. Walter likes one made by Buck Algonquin, so that's what I'm shopping for. The main purpose of the stuffing box is to allow the prop shaft to go through the hull and allow it to rotate without letting water inside. Starting with the prop and working forward, my boat has a feathering max prop, and that feathers so that the blades have less drag when the prop isn't spinning. Then there's the support strut, which I discovered mine is bronze, and this contains the cutless bearing. And the cutless bearing's job is to support the prop shaft and make sure that there's limited movement or vibration. Next is the shaft log. A shaft log is a hollow tube that passes through the hull, much like a standard through hull, but much longer. Some of these are prefabricated that look like this, and builders or retrofitters may choose to use these. On my boat, I have a fiberglass shaft log that's built into the hull. The stuffing box has a heavy-duty rubber hose that slides over the shaft log and then is clamped on with 4 hose clamps. I'm just doing a little quick dry fit here just to make sure everything lines up and looks good, which brings me to another slippery slope. Since I need to pull the prop shaft aft and remove the coupler that attaches it to the transmission in order to slide the stuffing box over it, maybe I should take the opportunity and drop the shaft all the way out and replace the cutless bearing. Since it's right there, and I keep hearing this voice in my head that says, you might as well.
And you might as well do it with some style.
Looking at the alignment of the shaft and then the prop, in order to drop the shaft all the way out to remove the cutless bearing, I'm going to need to remove the prop, as the shaft just barely gets by the skeg and the rudder. So now the project goes from replacing the stuffing box to replace the stuffing box, remove and repack the prop with grease, replace the cutless bearing, and of course replace the very sad-looking zincs that are totally wasted. And the voice keeps telling me I might as well, since I'm right here. And don't forget, I've got to give this a really good scrubbing with a wire brush and clean all the gunk off of it. Now that I've got some of the basic cleanup done, I realize I'm gonna have to call in some experts for some additional support here. The first is Andrew, also known as Rue, who is a fine furniture maker and also happens to be my nephew. He's in town visiting and he's got some serious woodworking skills which I hope will help me with some of the bigger projects. I also have local boat expert and fellow neighbor Rhett. Rhett works for Walter Schultz at Shannon Boat Company, and he's done just about everything when it comes to boats. Electrical, engine, fiberglass, plumbing, varnish, and he's nice enough to swing by on his off hours to help provide some coaching, which I clearly need a ton of. Just had to unscrew a few bits and pieces to get the propeller off, and a somewhat pesky line cutter.
I've already cut myself on one boat today.
Of course you have. You're boated. That's how you know if you're boated or not.
Did you work on the boat today? Oh yeah, I have a little bit less blood. I must have. Oh, good catch. Ooh!
I need a skeg bender.
Yeah. So we need a big ass socket.
And a beer. Thank you.
And a puller.
So the beer's going to help with a little bit of the frustration of not being able to finish this all up in one evening. While we sort out where to get that socket from, Rhett and I are going to head up topsides and disconnect the coupler from the engine transmission, and then I'm going to move the dripless stuffing box. This is pretty straightforward. You have 2 bolts that clamp down on the drive shaft, and then there's a set screw. The set screw is also tied down with a wire tie that's acting as a cotter pin. And then there's 4 bolts that connect it to the transmission. Oh, so easy. That's delightful. Alright. Happy times.
As you're pulling to loosen it, the shaft is going to want to move.
All right. Yeah. That is awkward.
Yeah, you'll have to try and get. You'll feel an angle that where you're pulling.
Yep.
Not around, but straight.
I wonder if that one would be any better. No.
You want me to wake them?
Maybe I'll have Rue go hold the shaft.
Oh yeah.
Could you use your teeth?
Yeah. Manly teeth.
I gotta get the views, you know? Wow. All right, that's pretty cool. This is new territory for me. I definitely feel much better having some experts with me. Prop shaft elves. Wow, it's moving pretty fast. That's great. Great sign. Yeah, it's exciting for me, getting that thing replaced and fixed, and some coaching to make me feel a lot less nervous about it.
To put the puller on it.
Oh, right. That's
because you got to get that off.
Yeah, okay. I was so excited to get the stuffing box on there that I forgot that Rhett had brought his puller tool, which is used to get the coupler off the end of the shaft. So, first things first.
There you go.
Oh, et voila!
And get the key off of there.
Yeah, magic key. Oh, it's grooved. Oh. True, I do have to protect my
Shiny shaft.
With that done, I can now take the stuffing box off and get it out of the boat. Twisty. Bada bing. Bada bing. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's just exhaust hose. Wow. All right. And that brings the life of that stuffing box to an end. A few things to know about Rhett is one, he's tenacious, and two, he has the tool for that. While Rue and I called it a night, Rhett went back to his shop, grabbed the tool, came back, and took off the body of the prop. Next day, we were able to get right down to business with the cutlass bearing. We started out creating a little bit of a DIY bearing press tool with some PVC and some threaded rod, but that didn't budge anything a millimeter. So we decided to take the shaft all the way out. You ever have growth on your shaft? After more than a dozen raunchy jokes, we decided the best way forward was to heat up the bronze strut so that it would expand a little bit, which might alleviate some of the friction, and then we could use a bearing press and give it some light taps to try to get some movement on it. We finally got some movement using the bearing press, but we needed to tap it a little bit harder, so we propped up a little bit of wood to support the strut to try to stabilize it so that tapping on it doesn't create any undue movement.
It gets tiring.
And hanging on till the very end there, isn't she?
You take it. Lefty. Oh yeah. There you go.
Woo! Oh yeah.
Lefty.
Oh Ran out of hammer. There we go. Woohoo!
So the moods are riding pretty high after that triumph, and we decided to call it a night there because Rhett had a great idea, which was to put the new cutless bearing in a deep freezer, get it really, really cold, and then soften that leading edge just a tiny bit with a coarse sandpaper. And then we're going to heat up the strut so that there's a good temperature differential so that it might press in a little bit easier. Rhett brought some really sweet clamps for us to try to squeeze the bearing into the strut. We got to the limit of what this clamp could do, and so Rhett went back to his shop and grabbed another clamp that was even better for this job. Wow. Oh, my hands. Well, that viewer might not have been that far wrong because both Rhett and I had our hands pretty well chewed up. Down below, we've got to get the shaft back in, and then we've got to reassemble and mount the propeller and zincs. This is not your standard three-bladed prop. This is a feat of engineering by Max Prop. It is really impressive, but it also means it's quite complicated to put it back together properly. If you noticed earlier, we actually marked off with a Sharpie the blade positions so that we'd have a little bit of a reference point putting it back together. This is one of those instances where I'm just going to lean a little heavily on Rhett and his expertise to make this go smoothly. Before we put this on, we're going to give it a thorough cleaning and rub down so that it's totally sparkling before we put it on.
The greasy spot.
Once we put it on, we're going to pack it with all fresh grease.
Oh, there we go. Yep, it's nice.
Heading back up top, I'm going to install this stuffing box by just putting a little bit of insurance sealant around the shaft log here and then slide it over. It's not necessary, but I like a little bit of insurance there just to keep it sealed. That was satisfyingly quick to get that on. Next up is the prop shaft coupler. Rhett's gonna lead the way on this one, and I'm gonna hold on to the shaft while he taps on the coupler with a hammer to get it into place.
So let me see how much I need to take.
Yeah. Ready?
Got the clamping bolts and the set screw to put back in. Now we just have the 4 bolts to mount it to the transmission. Oh, did I say that's all? I forgot about the securing wire for the set screw. Better get that in there.
You love that light.
So the job is not truly complete at this point because I have not put in the packing material. I'm going to hold off on that and do that a little bit later on and make that part of a prep and splash episode. In this episode, we use Total Boat's Scheel, which I'm really happy with. If you are in the market for some sealant or varnish or epoxies or paints, head on over to totalboat.com/yachthunters and you'll get 5% off. I'll put a link below in the description as well. Thanks as always to our awesome Patreon supporters. Your support means the world to me and makes this show possible, so thanks very much. And of course, a huge thanks to Rue and Rhett, who made this a whole lot more fun. So thanks, guys.